The longship cuts through the relentless gray expanse of the North Sea. Wind howls, whipping icy spray across the deck. Every breath is a shock, every wave a threat. For the Norsemen, warmth was not a comfort. It was a matter of survival, a constant battle against the frigid embrace of the sea and the unforgiving northern climate. Unlike later vessels, the Viking longship offered no enclosed cabins, no protected holds for its crew. Warriors and traders alike were exposed to the full fury of the elements. Snow, sleet, and freezing rain were daily companions, threatening to strip away body heat with ruthless efficiency. The air itself felt like a physical assailant. This unforgiving environment demanded an ingenious, multi-layered approach to thermal regulation. The human body, when exposed to such sustained cold, rapidly succumbs to hypothermia, its core temperature plummeting. A Viking's life often hung by the thread of his practical understanding of materials and environmental physics. The challenge was immense. How to maintain core body temperature during days, sometimes weeks at sea, without the benefit of fire or modern insulation. The answer lay not in a single solution, but in a sophisticated interplay of clothing, diet, activity, and even the very design of their ships and settlements. It was a holistic system. Their survival engineering began long before the ship left the fjord. From the raw materials painstakingly harvested from their land, the Norse crafted garments that were both insulating and remarkably resilient. Every fiber, every stitch, served a critical function in the relentless quest to retain precious body heat against nature's onslaught. Wool was the cornerstone of Viking cold weather gear. Its natural crimp creates countless tiny air pockets, trapping warmth close to the body. Even when wet, wool retains much of its insulating properties, a crucial advantage in the damp, spray-soaked environment of the longship. It was the original technical fabric for extreme conditions. The inner layers consisted of thin woolen tunics and trousers, often felted for greater density. Over this, a thicker, coarser wool tunic or kirtle provided a primary barrier against the cold. The layering system was intuitive and highly effective, allowing for adjustment to exertion levels and changing weather conditions. Outer garments, such as cloaks, were woven from dense, thick wool, sometimes oiled or treated with lanolin to enhance water repellency. These cloaks were often large, enabling a Norseman to wrap himself completely, creating a personal microclimate. The hood, an integral part, shielded the head and neck, critical areas for heat loss. Animal hides and furs supplemented wool, particularly for extreme cold. Bear, wolf, and fox furs offered superior insulation, often used for lining cloaks, caps, or mittens. Leather, treated with animal fats or oils, provided wind and water resistance for outer coverings, especially for footwear and protective aprons worn while working. Footwear was equally vital. Leather shoes or boots, often reinforced and sometimes lined with wool or fur, protected feet from freezing temperatures. Woolen socks, sometimes multiple pairs, or foot wrappings provided additional insulation. Keeping feet dry was an ongoing, often losing battle, but essential for preventing frostbite. Mittens, also crafted from thick wool or fur-lined leather, shielded hands from the bitter wind and spray. Fingers together within a mitten retained heat more effectively than individual fingers in gloves. This simple design choice highlights the practical wisdom ingrained in their survival engineering, prioritizing function over form. Beyond clothing, the very structure of their longhouses on land was a marvel of passive heating. Thick turf walls, often meters deep, provided immense insulation. Central hearths burned continuously, their smoke rising through roof vents, warming the large communal space. Heat was retained, not wasted. The Vikings' internal engine for warmth was fueled by a high-calorie, high-fat diet. Meat, fish, and dairy products were staples, providing the sustained energy needed to generate metabolic heat. On long voyages, dried and cured meats, fish, and hardtack were portable, dense energy sources critical for enduring the cold. Physical activity was another constant generator of warmth, particularly when rowing. The rhythmic exertion of pulling oars warmed the body from within. Even when sailing, vigilance and constant minor adjustments to rigging kept muscles active. Stagnant cold was battled with deliberate, sustained effort, transforming labor into warmth. On the open sea, communal body heat became an unconscious strategy. Norsemen would huddle together under cloaks, especially during watches or periods of rest. This shared warmth, A primal instinct reduced individual heat loss and fostered a bond of shared endurance against the relentless cold of the northern waters. Isolation was a death sentence. In the longhouse, the central hearth was not merely for cooking. It was the social and thermal core of the community. Here, stories were exchanged, tools repaired, and bonds forged in the flickering light and warmth. The constant presence of a robust fire, fed by wood or peat, elevated internal temperatures to habitable levels. Sleeping arrangements were optimized for warmth. Families often slept together on raised platforms or benches, close to the communal hearth, sometimes sharing animal furs or woolen blankets. The collective body heat of several individuals further contributed to a warmer sleeping environment, even in unheated corners of the longhouse. The very architecture of the longhouse minimized drafts. Doorways were typically small and low, often with a vestibule or inner door to create an airlock effect. Gaps in the turf or timber walls were chinked with moss or mud, preventing precious warm air from escaping and cold drafts from infiltrating the living space. Personal hygiene, while not a direct heat source, indirectly contributed to warmth. Regular bathing, often in heated bathhouses or with warm water in the longhouse, not only cleansed but also stimulated circulation and allowed for inspection of skin for frostbite. A healthy body was better equipped to fight the cold. Compared to their contemporaries, the Norse often faced harsher climates with less developed infrastructure. While a Frankish noble might retreat to a stone castle with multiple fireplaces, the Viking on campaign or at sea relied on portable, adaptable solutions, a testament to their self-reliance and pragmatic ingenuity. Saxon or Anglo-Saxon populations, though also accustomed to temperate climates, generally stayed closer to fortified settlements or large timber halls during winter. Their heating systems, while effective for stationary structures, lacked the mobility and intrinsic protective layering that characterized Viking survival where at sea. The Byzantines, in their warmer Mediterranean sphere, built elaborate baths and heated public spaces, but their maritime forces rarely encountered the sustained, deep cold of the North Atlantic. Their ship designs and clothing were not engineered for continuous exposure to sub-zero temperatures and icy ocean spray. What set the Norse apart was not simply the use of wool or hides, but the systemic integration of these materials with their active mobile lifestyle. Every piece of their thermal defense was designed for practicality during arduous journeys, whether rowing across the sea or trekking through snow-covered landscapes. The ability to withstand brutal cold directly contributed to their military and economic success. While other cultures huddled indoors, the Vikings could maintain readiness, launch raids, or conduct trade routes through seasons when others were immobilized. Their thermal engineering was a strategic advantage. This adaptability was a core tenet of Norse existence. They didn't simply endure the cold, they actively engineered ways to navigate and even exploit it. Their knowledge of materials, layering, diet, and communal living provided a robust shield against an environment that would have crippled lesser prepared societies. The Viking Age, and with it, this unique adaptation to the cold, was not static. Over centuries, various factors began to shift the balance. One significant change was the gradual Christianization of Scandinavia. As new beliefs took hold, so did new cultural priorities and organizational structures. Christianity brought with it increased contact with continental Europe and a move towards more centralized kingdoms. This meant less emphasis on independent raiding parties and long-distance voyages for plunder, and more on organized trade, agriculture, and internal governance. The immediate need for extreme portable thermal solutions lessened. The establishment of towns and larger, more permanent settlements also changed the dynamic. Instead of temporary camps or longhouses optimized for communal warmth, more elaborate and individually heated homes began to appear, especially for the affluent. Heating systems evolved beyond the single central hearth. Trade routes, once dominated by longships, gradually saw the introduction of larger purpose-built merchant vessels, cogs, and hulks that offered more enclosed spaces and improved crew protection from the elements. While still challenging, maritime travel became less about raw exposure and more about cargo capacity. Climatic shifts also played a role. While the early Viking Age experienced a relatively mild period, later centuries brought about colder phases, such as the Little Ice Age. This, combined with changing political landscapes, prompted adaptations not just in personal warmth, but in agricultural practices and settlement patterns. The heroic era of the individual Viking, braving the elements with only wool and grit, began to wane. The evolving social fabric, improved technology in shipbuilding, and a less nomadic existence meant that while the cold remained a constant, the methods of combating it diversified and modernized. Yet the legacy of Norse pragmatism in combating the cold endures. The fundamental principles of layering wool, utilizing high-fat diets, and engineering dwellings for passive heat retention remain valid even today. Their solutions were not temporary fixes, but deeply ingrained practices, honed over generations in a harsh environment. The Vikings' relationship with cold was not one of mere endurance, but of mastery through understanding. They did not conquer the North Sea or the brutal winters, but rather, they meticulously engineered a system to coexist with them, turning environmental challenges into opportunities for innovation and expansion. It was a testament to human ingenuity. Their ingenuity in staying warm was a cornerstone of their identity, enabling their legendary voyages and settlements across vast frozen expanses. It forged a resilient people intimately connected to their land and its materials, capable of thriving where others might simply perish. Their survival was a triumph of applied mechanics. From the humble woolen tunic to the insulated longhouse, every element served a critical purpose in the grand system of Viking survival. The answer to how they stayed warm in the freezing North Sea was not a single invention, but a profound understanding of their world. What other seemingly impossible feats did this fundamental mastery enable?